Um, Today we will be seeing two topics. Okay, first one is briefly we will try to complete the first one. Here we will be seeing about this theorem. Okay, Fermat's theorem. Okay, before going to see, just we will recap some things which we have already seen. That is like what is meant by prime number. Prime number is nothing but the number which is divisible by one end itself. This definition we know, and these are some of the examples. I hope I need not explain. Next, actually 1 is not considered to be a prime number. Why? Because in other words we can say exactly two factors we need to have. One end itself for the given number n, one end itself should be the factors. For one, two factors we are not having, only one factor. So one in general we will not consider as a prime number. Okay, fine. Next, consider prime factorization. What is meant by prime factorization? This also we have discussed. Prime factorization is nothing but whatever the number it may be, you can take any number like 24 or 64, okay, or 67, any number you take. This we can write it as multiple product of prime numbers. Like 24 we can write it as 2 power 3 multiplied by 3. 2 is 2 is what? Prime number. 3 is also prime number. Like this we can write. 64, how we can write? 64 directly we can write to 2 power 6. Okay, even you can consider any number like 18 you consider. We can write it as 2 multiplied by 9, and this can be written as 2 multiplied by 3 power 2. So here 2 and 3 are prime numbers. This power need not be prime, that you keep in mind. Like you consider 36, 36, then what we will get? 2 power 2. Okay, 2 power 4, 16 into 9, 144. 144 you say, 2 power 4 multiplied by 3 power 2. Here 4 is not a prime, but the base we will be considering. Now it is 2 power 4 multiplied by 3 power 2, in the sense it is nothing but product of prime numbers only. 2 power 4 in the sense 4 times we will be multiplying 2, then 2 times 3. So all these are prime numbers only. Like this we could able to write, that is prime factorization. For every number we could able to write as product of prime numbers. Any number we could able to write. Okay, for example 100, if you consider 5 power 2 into 2 power 2, like that we can write 25 into 4. So that is prime factorization. 143, this is another example. Yeah, prime factorization we know already. We have discussed several examples related to it with intuition and all. Yeah, yes, do you remember it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think at that time we have seen these things about numbers and all rigorously we have worked out. Yeah. Next, relatively prime. This is the new term to you, relatively prime. In the sense, for example, we are having two numbers, let us say A and B. A will be having some factors, okay, like x1, x2, x3. Just to assume these are the factors for A. Similarly, we are having factors for B as well, y1, y2, y3, so on, up to some we will be having factors. Okay, whatever the factors we are having, these and these, the common factor is only one, then we can say these two are relatively prime. A and B are relatively prime. Whenever we are having the common factor as only one, then we can say these two are relatively prime. Okay, now you read the definition. Two numbers are relatively prime if they have no common divisors other than 1. Okay, for example 10 and 21. What are the factors for 10? 1, 2, 5, 10. These are the factors. Next, what are the factors for 21? 1, 3, 7, 21. Now, what is common in both the factors? Only 1. So we can say 10 and 21 are relatively prime. I hope you got it. What is meant by relatively prime? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next, GCD, anyway, GCD we have covered again in several ways. GCD of two relatively prime numbers can be determined by comparing their prime factorization and selecting the least powers. Two relatively prime numbers we are having, how we can find out the GCD? How we can find out the GCD? Just by comparing their prime factorization and selecting the least powers. What will be the GCD of two relatively prime numbers? Yes? Can you tell one more example
1.
for relatively prime? Please tell one more example. That means two numbers you have to say which are relatively prime other than 10 and 21. Can we say 12 and 21 as the relatively prime numbers? Relatively prime 12 and 21?
No, sir.
No, why? Because 3 is the factor. 1 only should be the common factor. Yeah. Any other example?
15 and 14.
15 and
14.
40?
1, 4.
1, 4. Okay. Yeah, you can consider. Yeah, these two are relatively prime. Correct. Even you consider any number a minus 1 or a plus 1. Are these two relatively prime or not? A and a plus 1.
Yes, sir.
Yes, definitely these two will be relatively prime. Yeah. So now whenever you consider relatively prime, what will be the GCD? GCD is nothing but common factors.
1.
Out of those, maximum 1 we have to take. So what will be the GCD?
1.
1. That's it. So, next, the example for GCD given 125, it is 5 cube, then 200, we can write it as 2 power 3 into 5, 5 power 2, and what is the common? Here 2 power 0 we are having. So common thing is 2 power 0 only. Next 5 power 2 is the common one. So the GCD is 25. This thing we have seen already. If the two numbers are relatively prime, then the GCD will be 1. Next, this is the example 10 and 21, then GCD will be 1. It then follows that a prime number is also relatively prime to any other number other than itself and 1. Okay, any prime number if you consider, it will be relatively prime. Why? Because for prime number we will be having what? We will be having only one end itself as the factors. So if that like you consider any prime number like p is the prime number, then what can be the factors of this prime number? One end itself. So if you don't consider these two, if you don't consider these two as another number, like q is another number, if q is not equal to these two, then definitely this will be relatively prime to q, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what it indicates. Yeah. Next, now actual this Fermat's theorem. This is a simple theorem. What it tells is, suppose if you consider p as the prime number, okay, if you consider p as the prime number and a as any other number which is not divisible by p, okay, which is not multiple of p, we can say, which is not multiple of p, then a power p minus 1, about this one we will be talking, okay. About this one it will tell a power p minus 1. P is what? Prime number. A is another any other number which is not multiple of p. See, sorry, why it is not displaying? Wait, it's not displaying. Yeah, is the thing visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Fermat's theorem. See here, P is prime, okay, P is prime, and A is any integer not divisible by P. Okay, A is any integer which is not divisible by P, then A power P minus 1, we can say it as 1 mod P. Okay, this is Fermat's theorem. Just based upon relatively prime, whatever we have seen, relatively prime, two numbers are relatively prime means whenever we consider the common factor, we will be having only one as the common factor. That's what it is indicating. A power P minus 1 and P are relatively prime. So whenever we divide like this, then we will be getting 1. Just this is an extension to this. This one is an extension to this. That is both sides, if you try to multiply with A, then we will be getting A power P, and here we will be getting A mod P. Okay, this is called Fermat's little theorem or Fermat's theorem. Anything. Just this statement you remember. If P is prime number and A is any integer not divisible by P, then A power P minus 1 is equal to 1 mod P. Okay, this is Fermat's theorem. One intuition we can understand in proving this, how we can get this one, just briefly I will try to show you. Consider a set of positive integers less than P. Okay, one set is there which P is nothing but what? P is nothing but prime number, as we have considered. P is a prime number. So we are considering whatever the numbers which are prior to this P minus 1, prior to this P as one set. So 1, 2, 3, so on up to P minus 1 we are having. Now we are multiplying each element of this particular set by A and modulo P. Okay, with these two we will be multiplying. Then what we will be getting? One set called X, where we will be having 1 multiplied by A multiplied by modulo P. So 1 mod P. Next, 2 multiplied by A multiplied by modulo P. So 2A mod P. Similarly, P minus 1 multiplied by A multiplied by mod P. So we will be getting like this. Okay, this is a set. Is this clear till this point? Just we are trying to get the intuition how this is given. A power P minus 1 is equal to 1 mod P. How we have arrived with this particular theorem, we will try to see. Okay, just intuition only we will be discussing. In detail we will not go. Yeah, see here we are considering a set which consists of the numbers up to P minus 1, that is 1, 2, 3, so on up to P minus 1, and we are multiplying this set with A and modulo P. Then we will be getting this set. Is this clear till this point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next, if you observe from the given statement, given statement is what? A is not divisible by P. A is not divisible by P. So now what we are having? A modulo P, or 2A modulo P, or 3A modulo P. Like this we are having, right? A modulo P, 2A modulo. So these will not give 0. Why? Because A is not divisible by P. So with that information, what we can conclude is these will not be zeros. So no elements of X is 0, and no two elements are same. Why? Because this is not 0, so definitely it can be 1 or 2 or 3, something like this we will be getting multiplied by 2. So these two will not be equal definitely, and this will be like 3 or 4, something like that, but no two values will be equal. That's what we can understand, that we can conclude, right? Why? Because A is not divisible by P. 2A will also be not divisible by P. P minus 1 into A is also not divisible by P. And if this value is not 0, then this will be different from this, and this will be different from all other values. Like that we can understand. Next, now what we will do is, as these all are having common property, that what is the common property here is relatively prime. According to the relatively prime, this we will get, okay, A multiplied by 2A multiplied by so on P minus 1 multiplied by A. This one we can write it as like suppose A and B are relatively prime, then we can say like this. A congruent to 1 mod B. Like this we can write. Similar to that, A and P are relatively prime. Why? Because P is prime number. Now what we can conclude, what we can deduct from this one is, all these numbers whatever we have here, this can be written as, A can be written as what? A into what you call 1 into mod B. What is mod, what is B value? B is nothing but P. So we will be getting like this. So A into 2A multiplied by P minus 1 into so on, P minus 1 into A is equal to this entire thing we will be taking, and we will get mod P. Now, if you simplify this one, this we will be getting A if you take common every time. From every term you can take A, then we will be getting A power P minus 1. Why? Because how many terms we have? 1, 2, 3, so on up to P minus 1 time terms we are having. So A power P minus 1 we will be getting. And here we will be remained with 1 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3, so on P minus 1. So on P minus 1, it is nothing but P minus 1 factorial. So A power P minus 1 multiplied by P minus 1 factorial, and here also we are having P minus 1 factorial, and this is mod P. Now, as we are having P minus 1 factorial in both the sides, we can say A power P minus 1 is equal to this one. We can say it as, we can cancel it, then we will get 1. So 1 mod P. A power P minus 1 is equal to 1 mod P. This we can obtain, and an alternative form of this theorem we can say it as like multiplying by A, then we will be getting here A power P, and here we will be getting A. Okay, this is an extension to this. Actually the Fermat's theorem is this one only. I hope you got at least some idea. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So basically, if possible, I will share with you some examples related to this. Okay, some examples like what is the value of A, what is the value of B, P, all those how we can interpret that I will try to share with you. Yeah. So now. Yeah, with this I will stop this topic. Let us go to another one. Yeah. We know what is meant by relation. What is meant by relation? Relation is nothing but relation. R is nothing but, it is collection of tuples. Collection of tuples. Suppose R is the relation on set A, and we are saying A and the relation is divides. Let us say divides is the relation. Then suppose the set A is 1, 2, 3, 4. Then what will be the relation? Now you say, what will be the relation? R is equal to A divides
2,
A divides
3,
A.
1, 4,
Yes.
1,
1, 1,
2, 1,
2, 1,
3, 1, 4,
3,
1,
1, 4, 1,
4, 2,
4, 2,
over, sir.
4, 4.
Yes, sir. 4, 4, 2, 2, 3, 3.
I think this one. Okay, this is the relation. Now, this relation, as many times we have discussed about this relation, and so many classes we have spent, and several advanced topics also we have discussed on top of this relation, like what are the properties of the relation, next what is meant by equivalence relation, what is meant by partial order relation. From that time, from there onwards, a partial order relation, how we can represent Hussey diagram, then what is maximum element, what is minimum element, what is maximal element, what is minimal elements, and how we can say meet, what is the meet, what is the join, all these things based upon this, how we can define several other things, what is meant by what you call this Boolean algebra, all these things we have discussed on top of this relation only. Okay. In the last class, I wanted to discuss about this relation. That's why I have kept one topic as pending while discussing about the relation. Why? Because this is the basis. I wanted to revise once again regarding this relation, so that all other topics you could able to prepare easily. Yeah. So now coming to the point, relation is nothing but what one particular set will be related to another one based upon one relation. Like it can be divides, or it can be factor, it can be some other thing. But we will be having some condition to relate elements of one set to another set. Here we have defined the relation between A with A only, but it can be like A with B also. This relation can be from a set A to set B as well, but we will be having corresponding condition. If some element called A is there, small a in capital A, and element called B in capital B, then these two are related provided some condition like A plus B equal to 10. This also can be considered. A plus B equal to 10. Let us consider we are having A value as A set as 1, 2, 3, 4, and B as 5, 6, 7, 8, 4, like this we are having. Let us assume like now we will be having A, we will be having B. Okay, what are the elements in A? 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, what are the elements in B? 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. Okay. Now, when these two are related, provided this condition is true, A plus B. So 1 and 5, are these two related? 1 and 5?
No, sir.
No. 2 and 5? No. 2 and 6? No. 2 and 7? No. 2 and 8? Yes. 3 and 5? No. 3 and 6? No. 4 and 6?
No.
4
4 and
and
6,
6?
yes.
Yes. 3 and 7? Yes. Any other? I think that's it. Okay, this is a relation. Now, this particular relation can be represented in several forms. Can you able to say what are the forms that we can? Relation can be represented in three ways. One is this tuple representation. That is, this particular relation can be represented in the form of sequence of tuples. Like 2, 8 is related. So 2, 8, this is one tuple. Next 3, 7 is another tuple. Next another one is 4, 6. Okay, these are the tuples. Now this is the tuple representation. Another representation of relation is what? Digraph
Matrix.
representation. Did we discuss this or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, digraph representation. How we will represent? Just we will be whenever we have two sets, then digraph will be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. All these will be vertices in the graph. And whenever 2 is suppose let us consider 1, 2, 3, 4, and here 5, 6, 7, 8, and here 4 as well. Now 5 is related to 6 is related to 4, or 4 is related to 6, so we will be having directed edge. Next 2 is related to 8, so we will be having directed edge. Next 3 is related to 7, so we will be having directed edge. Okay, this is digraph representation of the relation. Okay, in this particular example we don't have vertical relations with these elements, that's why these are isolated vertices, but in general we will be having one with one or another. Yeah, so this is the second type of representing the relation. Third type, is there any third type exist?
Matrix form, sir.
Yeah, matrix form. So we will be having rows and columns representation, like you can consider 1, 2, 3, 4, and here you can consider 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. Now 1 is not related to anything, so we will be putting 0. 2 is related to 8 only, so we will be putting remaining as 0. 3 is related to 7, so we will be putting remaining as 0. Like this 4 is related to 6. Okay, this is also allowed one. So this is another type of representing a relation. So three types we have seen. Next, what are the properties of relation which we have seen earlier? Properties of relation. Reflexive,
Symmetric,
reflexive, symmetric,
asymmetric,
irreflexive also we have seen.
Yes, sir.
Reflexive, irreflexive, symmetric, asymmetric,
antisymmetric,
antisymmetric,
transitive,
transitive. These are the properties. Based upon these properties, we have defined what is meant by equivalence relation, what is meant by partial order relation as well. Okay, just reflexive in the sense we will be having simple thing that suppose A is related to A itself, 1, 2, 3, 4 is the set A, then 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, all should be present, then we can say it as reflexive. Next, if any of these are not present, then we can say it as not reflexive. Suppose all are not present, then we can say it as irreflexive. That's it, correct?
yes, sir.
Yeah. Next, what about symmetric? Symmetric in the sense if we have the tuple like 2, 1, then we will be having, we must have 1, 2
1,
in
2.
the relation. Then only, not only for one particular tuple, for all the tuples A, B, we should have B, A. Then only, if A, B is present in the relation, then B, A should be present in the relation. Then we can say it as symmetric. Next, asymmetric in the sense, if A, B is present, then we should not have B, A. Not even for one tuple, B, A should not be present. Then we can say it as asymmetric. What about antisymmetric? A, B is present and B, A is also present. Then
A is equal to B.
Whenever A is equal to B, then only symmetric pair should be present. So now the question is, can we have 4, 4 in the asymmetric relation?
Yes, asymmetric, sir.
Asymmetric, yeah.
No, sir.
No, why? Because symmetric pair should not exist at all. So we will not be having 4, 4 or 1, 1. Now the question is, can we have a relation which is both reflexive and asymmetric?
No, sir.
No, that there is no possibility. Yeah. So now we have completed all the properties of the relation. Now, what is meant by one more thing is there? What is it? Transitive. What is meant by transitive?
If A, B and B, C belongs to a set, then A, C also belongs to that set.
Yeah. If A, B and B, C are part of the relation, then A, C should be part of the relation. That is, then it is said to be a transitive relation. Okay. Now, here only the interesting point is there. Suppose if a relation is given to you, okay, whether it is in tuple representation or digraph representation or in matrix representation, one relation is given to you or definition itself given to you. In any form you can represent, right? In definition also you can give rather than any of these three forms. So how can you say that, how can you check that that particular relation is reflexive or not? How can you check? By seeing, can you able to say whether it is reflexive or not? Suppose A is there, A is the set called 1, 2, 3 up to 9. Okay, can you able to say if the relation is given to you, can you able to say it is reflexive or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes. How you will check? You will be checking whether 1, 1 exists or not, 2, 2 exists or not, 3, 3 like that, 9, 9 exists or not. You will be checking. If at all, if you find all the 9, then you can say it is reflexive. If you don't find, then it is not reflexive. If you don't find anything, then you can say irreflexive. So reflexive and irreflexive we could able to check easily, and we did also. We have checked also already such kind of thing. Next, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next, if a set is given to you and the relation R is also given to you, that can be in any form like a tuple representation or some representation. Now you have to check whether it is symmetric or not. Can you able to check whether it is symmetric or not? Yes, can you able to check whether the given relation is
Yes, sir.
symmetric? Yes, what you can do, just by taking one tuple, you will be seeing reverse of it whether it exists or not. If it is exist, then you will go to the next tuple and check again same thing. Again next tuple we will check. Like that we will keep on checking. Okay, fine. Next, whether it is asymmetric or not, can you able to check? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that also we can check. If a comma b is there, we will be checking whether b comma a exists or not. If it exists, then we can say it is not asymmetric. If it is not exist for all the tuples, then we can say it is asymmetric. Okay, fine. Next, what about antisymmetric? Can we able to check antisymmetric?
Yes, sir.
Yes, antisymmetric also we can check by using whatever the procedure for symmetric and asymmetric, same procedure can be used there also, and we could able to check. Okay, fine. Now the question is, given a set A and the relation R, now you have to check transitivity. You have to check for transitivity. Yeah, how you will check transitivity?
First we will check A comma B,
Uh,
then we will check for B comma C. If
yeah.
we have A comma B and B comma C, then we will search for A and C, A comma C.
Yeah, that is the property. While checking, you might have felt, definitely you might have felt that transitive, whether the relation is a transitive or not, we are deciding it as a transitive or it as a not transitive, but is it correct or not, is it conclusive evidence or not, we will be feeling, right, that kind of doubt. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, while checking, we will be checking randomly some two tuples and we will try to see whether transitive pair exists or not. If it exists, then we will try to say another one, try to see another two tuples and we will try to see the transitive pair. Like this, we will be checking randomly. But in general, how we could able to find transitive or transitivity, whether it is a transitive relation or not, how we could able to find? This is the question. For that question only we will be giving answer in this class, okay, by applying some procedure and all. Okay, before going to see that procedure, let us try to introduce one term called closure. Closure, what does it mean is, if you consider that closure, something will be fulfilled, something will be what you call made full. Okay, that's what you can get. That such kind of intuition you need to have. Closure in the sense, if you consider that, it will be fulfilled. Okay, now coming to the point, a relation is given to you, R is given to you, whether like this kind of relation is given to you. Now you have to check what is the reflexive closure. Try to understand the point. We wanted to check what is a reflexive closure. Reflexive closure in the sense, to make this relation as reflexive, what are the tuples that we need to add to this, that is nothing but reflexive closure. This relation may be reflexive or not reflexive, but in order to make this relation as reflexive, some tuples we may need to add. Can you able to tell what are the tuples that we need to add to make it reflexive? Not only this particular relation, any relation is given to you, then can you able to say what are the tuples that we need to add in addition to make it as reflexive? Shall I repeat the question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. See here, set A is there and the relation R is there. Okay, we don't A is having some elements 1 to 9. Now R is having some tuples. Now by seeing this one, can you able to say what are the tuples which are missing to claim this relation as the reflexive? Can you able to say?
Yes, sir.
Yes, definitely. By seeing the how many reflexive tuples are there, remaining what are we need to add, that you could able to say directly. Why? Because 1 comma 1, 2 comma 2, 3 comma 3, like this only we will be having reflexive pairs. How many such kind of things are there? How many are not there? Those you can find it out, and you can say including that it will become reflexive. That so reflexive closure is not that much difficult. Directly we could able to say. Similarly, irreflexive closure, can you able to say irreflexive closure if the relation is given to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, directly we will be checking whether any reflexive what you call tuples are there or not. If nothing is there, then we need not worry, it will be irreflexive only. But if any such things are there, we need to what you call, we need to discard those so that we can say. Next, symmetric. Can we able to give closure with respect to symmetric relation? Symmetric, suppose a relation is given to you, some tuples are missing. Some tuples are missing to claim this relation as the symmetric. Can we able to give those tuples? What are the tuples which are missing easily?
Yes, sir.
Yes, of course, similarly asymmetric and antisymmetric as well. Now, coming to the transitive, by given this set A and the relation, can you able to say these are the tuples which are missing to make it as a transitive? To make it as transitive, there should be some procedure that we need to adopt. Otherwise, we cannot find that much easily. This is not what you call a trivial thing. Yes or no? Transitive means so many combinations we have to check, and then we have to conclude that whether it is transitive or not. Okay, if it is not transitive, then one counter example is sufficient. But if it is transitive, then we need to check all the possibilities. So that is more difficult. Why? Because so many combinations will come, right? Like from one tuple, suppose we are having 5 tuples in the relation. With one tuple, we can pair with 2, 3, 4, 5. So 4 possibilities are there. Next, again for the next one also, we will be having 2, 3, 4, 5. So again 4 combinations will be there. Here also 4 combinations. Here also 4 combinations. Like that, we will be having so many comparisons. Then only we could able to conclude that the relation is transitive or not. Could you able to feel the difficulty in determining whether the relation is transitive or not?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now we will be finding transitive closure. Transitive closure in the sense, in order to make the relation as transitive, we will be getting these are the tuples which are missing, or these are the tuples that we need to add, so that it will become transitive. Such kind of thing we could able to get. I will tell you in other direction as well, but as of now you consider like this transitive closure. How we can find out this transitive closure? Now, whatever the relation, just can you able to tell any relation which is not transitive from whatever the examples we have seen earlier? If you have any notes kind of thing. Yeah, anyone is taking notes, ma? Okay, give
Yes,
some
sir.
example. Yes, Hafiz, are you taking?
Yes, sir. But like the important things, I'm taking just the definitions like that.
Okay, any examples are you noting?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay, tell me one relation which is not transitive. Let us try to work on those. Yeah, one relation which is not
1 comma
transitive.
2,
1 comma 2,
1 comma 3,
1 comma 3,
3 comma 4,
3 comma 4,
4 comma 2,
4 comma 2,
2 comma 3.
2 comma 3. Yeah, 2 comma 3. So what is the set? Set here is 1 2 3 4, right? So 1 2 3 4 is the set. Now this particular relation can be represented in the form of matrix also, right? So matrix, what is the order of the matrix that we can store this one? 4 by 4. Why? Because the 4 elements are there. So 4 by 4 matrix we will be having 1 2 3 4. Now where we will be keeping 1? Whenever 1 comma 2, in the sense 1 comma 2 correspondingly we'll put 1, 1 comma 3 we'll put 1, next 3 comma 4, so we'll put 1 here, next 4 comma 2, 4 comma 2 we'll put 1 here, next 2 comma 3 we'll put 1 here. So remaining all will be zeros. Okay, so now we have represented the same thing in the form of matrix. This we know earlier only. Now what we will do is, like first we will be taking the first row. First row where we are having 1, in the first row where we are having the 1,
In the second and third column.
at 2 and 3 we are having 1, 2 comma 3 we are having 1. Next in the first column where we are having, in the first column where we are having 1,
Nowhere.
no. Okay, next similarly you consider in the second row where we are having 1, second row,
At third column.
third column, in the what you call this second column, second column where we are having
At first and second. First and fourth rows.
first and fourth. Okay, 1 comma 4 and 3. Okay, now what is the Cartesian product of these two? Cartesian product in the sense, suppose you are having a comma b as one set, c comma d as another set. What is the Cartesian product of these two? Cartesian product we have discussed, right? Cartesian product will be a comma c, a comma
A
d.
comma D.
Hmm.
B comma C. B comma D.
B comma d. So this is the Cartesian product. Now what is the Cartesian product of these two? 2 comma empty, so there won't be any tuple like this. Next 3 comma pi or pi comma 3, so there won't be any tuple which can be formed. So with pi, if you perform Cartesian product, there will be empty set only, so we will not be getting anything. Okay, so as this is empty, we will not update this particular matrix, that you understand from here. What we did first column, first row we have taken, and we did Cartesian product. As this is empty, Cartesian product will also be empty. As we have got empty, so we will not update this matrix. Now you consider second row, second row, second column, second row, second column, then 1 comma 4 and 3. Now what is the Cartesian product of 1 comma 4 and 3?
1 comma 4. 4 comma 3.
1 comma 3,
4 comma 3.
4 comma 3. So 1 comma 3, 4 comma 3. Now in these entries we have to put 1. In the are we having 1 comma 3 in the result? In this particular matrix, are we having 1 comma 3? 1 comma 3 as 1? Yes.
Yes, sir.
4 comma 3?
No, sir.
4 comma 3? No. So 4 comma 3 is 0. Okay, this is causing the relation as non-transitive. If you change this relation as this particular entry as 1, then we can transform this to transitive relation. Okay, we can avoid this case. If you put here 1 instead of 0, what will happen? This particular pair, like 3 comma 4 is there. Any example? 4 comma 3, why it is causing 4 comma 3? So 4 comma 3 we have to put 1. Why I will say. Next, afterwards, third now updated one is containing 0110 in the first row. In the second row we are having 0010, third row 0001, fourth row 0110. Okay, this is the updated matrix that we will be considering next. Now third row, third column you consider. What is third row, third column? Third column, what we are having? Where we are having 1? Third column.
At first and second.
1, 2, 4. Right? 4 also. We have updated, right? So 1,
Yes,
2,
sir.
4. Next, third row, where we are having third row?
At 4.
4. Now what is the Cartesian product of these two?
1 4 2 4 4 4.
Yeah, 1 4 2 4 4 4. Okay. Now 1 4, are we having 1? 1 2 1 4. We don't have. So we have to make it as 1. Next 2 4, are we having 1? No. We have to make it as 1. Next 4 4, are we having 1? No. So these all entries we have to change it as 1. Okay. Next, now you consider fourth what you call fourth row, fourth column. Okay. Fourth row, fourth column. Fourth column is having all ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4 we will be getting. Next, fourth row is having 2 and
2 3 4.
2, 3, 4. So what is the Cartesian product of this? 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. Next. Next 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4. 2, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4. 4, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4. Like this we will be getting. So by seeing these all tuples, wherever we don't have corresponding entry as 1, we have to make that corresponding entry as 1. Then we could able to say that is the transitive closure of the given relation. Is this a transitive relation first of all? Is this transitive relation? Can you give one counter example for claiming it is not transitive? 1, 3, 3, 4. We can say directly 1, 3, 3, 4. What should be present? 1, 4 should be present. Is it available? No. So it is not transitive. But in the resultant, did we get 1, 4? Did we get 1, 4 in the resultant?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Next, any other counter case from this 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3 should be present. From these two, 4, 2, 2, 3, what is the transitive pair? 4, 3 should be present. Is it present? No. So in this result, we should get 4, 3. Did we get that at any time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, here itself we have got 4, 3. Next, any other example? 2, 3 you consider. 2, 3 and 3, 4. 2, 3, 3, 4. What is the resultant? 2, 4. Is 2, 4 present? No. So 2, 4, did we get anywhere? 2, 4 here you can observe. 2, 4. Like this, whatever the pairs which are needed to make this relation as a transitive, that we could able to find out by using transitive closure. For this transitive closure, we are having an algorithm. To find out the transitive closure, we are having an algorithm that is called Warshall's algorithm. Warshall's algorithm. So this Warshall's algorithm, for what purpose we will be using? To find out the transitive closure of a relation. Whenever we find a transitive closure, then the resultant relation will become transitive definitely. That is the use of this Warshall's algorithm. I hope you got it. What is meant by Warshall's algorithm? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you able to give steps? If you want to note
Yes.
down, you can note down. Otherwise, Yeah. Yeah, what are the steps for Warshall's algorithm?
First, change the relation into a matrix.
Yeah. So informally we will write. So first we will consider relation as represent relation as matrix. Okay, represent R as matrix. Next,
Now check for one in first row,
hmm,
then check in column,
yeah,
first
take
column.
just a second. No? Hello, sir. Hmm. Hmm. I'm in class, sir. Maybe after 5-10 minutes I can join. Okay, okay. Hmm. So, sorry, represent R as matrix M. Afterwards, take what? First row, first column. So, first column and first row. Okay, this is the order. First column and first row. Entry of one entry, we can say one entry, or write it like this. One entries as sets. That's what we are doing, right? First column, first row we are taking. What we are taking? One entries only we are taking as different sets. Then we are performing what?
Cartesian product.
Cartesian product of those two. Okay, Cartesian product of those sets. Okay, calculate Cartesian product or get Cartesian product of those sets, and accordingly what we are doing? Updating, after getting the Cartesian product, updating the and update the and update matrix M. Yes or no? We are updating the matrix M. Okay, this matrix M, let us consider this after updating this matrix M, we will be getting M1. So, first row we have considered. What does it indicates? M1. Next, in the next step, what we will do? We will take second column, second row, and one entries we will make as sets. Then again we will perform, we will get the Cartesian product of those sets and update the matrix M1 as M2. Okay. Next again third column, third row we will take one entries and we will get the Cartesian product. Again we will update matrix M2 as M3. Like this we will keep on repeating. How many times we will be repeating these two steps? These two we will be
According to
repeating
number of rows and columns.
one more time. How many times? We will be repeating for number of rows and columns, in the sense, and rows and columns from where we will be getting? From the relation. Relation from where we are getting? From set A. Yes or no? How many rows will be there? How many columns will be there?
Number of elements in A.
Number of elements in A. So those many number of rows will be there automatically. We need to repeat for those many number of times. So number of elements in the given set, those many number of times we need to repeat. Instead of first column, second column, we can say ith column, ith row. And here we can say mi, we will make it as mi. This can be considered as mi minus 1, and you can consider this one as m naught. That's it. So this is almost what you call near to the formal Warshall's algorithm. Okay. Overall, these steps only will be there, but some other terminology. I hope you understand how you could able to obtain transitive closure by using Warshall's algorithm. And what is the objective of obtaining transitive closure? It is to make the relation as a transitive. What are the pairs that we, what are the tuples that we need to add? That will be given by transitive closure. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So with this, let us stop our discussion about discrete structures for computer science. Yeah. Thank you, ma. I hope I have tried